The whole purpose of this is around boosting growth and using customer identity management as a linchpin for that boosting of growth. I don't want this to be seen as a cost element within an organization. I want it to see something that's seen as something that's adding to the top line. And if we just think about what customers are demanding from our organizations, the first thing is that they are demanding security, and I think there's something that we all expect. We see that a few surveys that have been done recently. One from the Guardian here in the UK was that 83% of customers wanted there to be tougher penalties for people who had privacy breaches. 66% of enterprises are saying that they're getting feedback through from their customers that they're demanding that increase in privacy. But at the same time, they have to have convenience. And we've got to find this balance between those two. So they want security on the one hand, but people have higher customer experience expectations than they've ever had before. And if we think about the fact that 40% of customers will abandon an entire brand after a single poor customer experience, then as organizations, we've got to really focus on that element, but remembering that they require security as well. And we know that the companies who are able to deliver that are able to see massive increases. So multi-billion-dollar companies can see on average an increase of $258 million when they have improved customer experience. And they're able to save on average $8 million for breaches that they're able to prevent. So it's in the customer's demands and it's in the business's interest to make sure that we get this balance right. And it has to be an equal balance. We can't have security outweighing user experience or vice versa, because you'll fall into a trap of either providing a poor customer experience and losing your customers that way, or having a breach and losing customers and losing customer trust. So the balance has to be there the whole way through. And customer identity management really allows us to be able to kind of streamline that journey. And I like to kind of break this down into three primary areas of this: the acquisition and the retention of the customer. So how do we get the customer on board? How do we make them feel excited about the brand? How do we then have that loyalty and revenue that comes through from that retention element? And how do we make sure that they have that trust? And we break those down into specific kind of customer identity components that you can see within there, from registration all the way through personalization and privacy. And making sure that the customer identity management allows that security of those things. So we're ensuring that we've got data being encrypted. We're providing advanced access security. We're protecting from insider attacks. We're providing secure methods of authentication, so people really do feel that they can trust us. Customer identity management can allow all of that to occur. So let's kind of run through at a broad level that element of the journey. Firstly, you've got to get them on board. So your primary goal when you're going to try to get them on board is providing that delight for the customer. So they want to have seamless authentication mechanisms. They want to have really straightforward social registrations and social logons. They want to have convenience when they're interacting with you. You've also got to make sure that you're protecting them from fraud. So making sure that they are the people that are authenticating, having some type of adaptive authentication. So if it doesn't seem like it is that person, it's coming from a different device or a different location, or coming from two locations at the same time, then you're picking up on those elements. So we're delighting and we're making sure that we're protecting. And I want people to sit there and think, the first interaction that I want someone to have with my brand has to look good. We've all been through those situations where registration's been difficult, or we've provided a user interface that looks clunky. And the first thing that customers do is click off that. You can see those through the web tracks that you have within your organizations. So make access look good. Remove passwords out of those environments. Use social logons wherever you can. And this can be whether you're in a retail environment, a financial services environment, a public sector environment. All of these are able to be done. You've just got to make sure that you've got that right balance between experience and security. Provide customizable templates that are able to be used by your developers. You're never going to have ease of customer experience and security if every single one of your developers who's building the apps is using a different process for doing so. So have customizable templates that are easy to use, and you can share those out to all of your developer community. Use APIs that are calling back against this, so you've got a standardized approach. That provides perfect registration and seamless logon for any of the users that are trying to access your environment. And make the device a trusted device. You know, most people are accessing an organization's information through mobile devices a lot of the time now, or through a provided device. Create the trust around that device that allows you to add an element of security to that, and actually make it easier for them to be able to use it. And that can be going through things like Windows Hello, or using the biometric elements that are built within your device, but actually using that as a primary authentication method for you. And if you're able to do that, you can actually start to really think about moving away from having passwords altogether. And we want organizations, you know, our goal in the industry is to get rid of passwords. They've been with us for way too long. So have something where you have a registration process, you understand that device, you're able to use security elements to trust the person and the device, and then you're able to access your profile. And Gartner's reckoning at this stage is that, you know, within the next 2 years, 60% of large global enterprises, those are the organizations that are the hardest to move into these type of arrangements, and 90% of mid-sized enterprises will deploy passwordless verification for their customers. And the technology exists today. Now is the time to move forward with that. And ultimately, I think you can get to a point of actually getting rid of all of this completely and getting to a real element of zero login. You're only able to do this with real trust of a device. And I think this is probably a stage further that takes us through to 2025 and beyond before people are really able to trust this. But it is there today. Get into a situation where you can access your device without even having to type in a username or use a social logon. The technology exists, it's definitely able to do. And if you're able to understand where people are coming from and the type of behavioral elements that people are doing when they're interacting with you, then you can start to make even better risk-based decisions. So if you analyze their behavior, you think about the fact that someone's just suddenly come from France over to China, and now they're accessing the same situation, the same applications, or they're trying to access from two places at the same time where there's impossible travel distances. Those are the types of things that would raise a red flag. This doesn't feel like a normal behavior, and so I'm going to prompt for another factor of authentication. I want to verify that that really is the case. That really is you. But if it is somebody who's always accessing from the same IP address, or they're accessing from the same computer screen or the same TV terminal or whatever they may have, then, and the behavior looks right, then for a large period of time, you can probably get to a stage where you're able to trust those. Again, it depends on your business and the level of risk that you're able to maintain within that business. But the technology is there to allow that behavioral risk analysis to take place. And if we think about the factors of authentication, again, mobile push verification is the best. You know, so somebody's trying to access something, you've got an application that's a secure application that you've built on, and it's on that customer's device, then push that out there using FIDO tokens or something along those lines, or other digital certificate tokens, will allow you to have a good level of trust. And all of these are providing a balance between the security and the customer. You take that down to the far end, you've got SMS, okay experience, but low security levels. Email and voice OTPs, one-time passwords, again, probably poor experience and poor security. So think about what you want to do. Again, we're always trying to find that balance between the user experience and the security when we're authenticating and registering our users. On the next stage of the journey that we want to go on, we're talking about loyalty and the revenue that you're going to get out of having a long-term relationship with that customer. So again, focus firstly on delighting the customer. At this stage, they're on board with you. You want to continue them being delighted. Have multi-channel experiences so that they understand wherever they are, whether they come in store, in branch, on a mobile device, on a computer, they have the same type of experience. They're interacting with your brand the same way. But also make sure that you're protecting their data. Protecting the data as it's at rest, as you're building more information about that customer, make sure you're protecting that, and make sure you're protecting from insider attacks. So with this is all about increasing the profile in your understanding of a customer. Understand their preferences. Rather than have multiple data stores where all of that information is residing, which is how it sits today. I work with a customer at the moment, and they have 36 different customer data stores. And that starts to bring complication in. It means you're not delighting them, and potentially you're introducing security risks as the data is being transferred between different applications. Bring all of this together and be able to provide a single profile that's using unstructured data in JSON containers within a single directory, so that you know that you can encrypt that. If you've got to worry about which data resides in which locations to meet privacy requirements, which data you want to take elsewhere, you can start to move that around. And all of the time, you're thinking about how you can personalize this for the user. So if we think about it, we're collecting their preferences in a mobile app. We may collect other preferences through another device. Don't put those in different containers, bring those all together. You want to be able to cross-sell to them. You want to be able to display content that matches their requirements. If you've got all of that information sitting in one location, it makes it far easier for you to not only provide a brilliant experience for those people, but also to know that you're really locking down that and you're securing that information in the place that it needs to be secured. And also, you want to make sure that if you've got large peaks, that you've got the scalability there. So have something that's able to automatically cloud scale if you're sitting if it's running in a public cloud environment or in your own private cloud environment. Make sure that you've got an always on mentality. The last thing that anybody wants is to suddenly have a demand spike mean that you suddenly lose revenue, you lose those customers, they can't access your information. So rather than having information being pulled from different areas, if you've got it in a single location and it's in a rapid to access location that's easily cloud scalable, then it's far better for you to be able to meet these headrooms and provide, again, delight to your customer, making sure that you're providing that security. So this balance again of user experience and securing customers' data is critical when we're looking at this. The final part of this journey that we have with our customers is around making sure that you're demonstrating that respect that you have to have for the customer's data. And I think that the word respect is underused on this. So we've got customers who are whose data is residing in our location. We have to take the responsibility for that and make sure that we're respecting that data. But they should have control over their data. This concept of self-sovereign identity, the concept of giving them control over the data that resides within your information. You don't own this. This is their data. You're just the custodian of it today. So give them that experience so that they feel that they're in control, and you make sure that you're enforcing consent as you need to, and you're complying with those regulations. So you need to decide how you're going to collect that consent. What type of consent is it that you need to be? And again, depending on your geolocation, the privacy regulations you have to meet, the type of business that you're in. You know, we've got simple marketing preferences through down to if you're in European financial services where you have to comply with PSD2 and you're having to allow third parties access to accounts, then there's a far greater level of consent that's needed. Everyone in Europe is covered, or has European customers is covered by GDPR. So we have to make sure that we're managing those consents. There's lots of consent, and that all should be stored in the same area where you're keeping your customer data. So you choose how you're going to collect that consent. And again, keep an auditable view of all of that consent, where it came from, what the timestamps were, what the context is associated with that, in that same unified profile that you've been building for that customer. So now that makes it far easier for you to be able to give control to a user. So if they request to know what information you hold about them, that's not a difficult task for you to try to go through. You have less risk associated with losing customer data that may be sitting in another directory that you weren't aware of or you weren't thinking about. So bring all of that together, so you've got the consent and the personalized components that are needed in the same profile. And again, from my side, make sure that this is something that is centrally enforced. Every time you're collecting a piece of data, you should be thinking and helping your developers as they're thinking about this to make sure that consent is being enforced. Am I allowed to be providing that data? So when a user is trying to access something and it needs data to be requested from a backend application, make sure that only the compliant data is being provided. So again, you may be working with a third party that's requesting information that shouldn't be leaving the European Union, just as an example. So you need to make sure that I'm actually going to look at that data and I'm only going to provide the data where consent is given, and that is compliant data. And again, those people who work in the financial services industry understand that really, really well when you think about open banking and the requests that could be coming through from trusted third parties who are trying to access information. Consent enforcement is the critical part that often gets overlooked when people are taking consent for the ability to be able to store information. This becomes difficult really, really quickly. And if you don't have a nice, straightforward graphical view of being able to see those privacy and data policies, then it's going to become really challenging. And I think that's been one of the areas of difficulty over the last few years, is people have been wanting to manage and enforce consent, but it becomes a really difficult thing if you haven't got a straightforward user interface to be able to do that. And I think it's critical that when people are looking at technologies that they're going to employ to take on this task, that they're thinking about that user interface to be able to manage it. So again, all the time here, we're thinking about that balance of giving control to the user and making sure that we're enforcing and requesting the consent that is needed for the data that we're going to be storing. So overall, we're thinking about that customer journey again. We've got acquisition and retention of customers, the loyalty and the revenue that we're going to get from them. And all the time, we're trying to build more business with those customers and demonstrate the trust and the responsibility that we have for their data. That comes down to delighting the customers, providing a frictionless, passwordless interaction for them, making sure that it's scalable and that it meets all of the multi-channel requirements where a user is going to be interacting with your brand. And then from an internal perspective, you need to be able to demonstrate to those customers how you protect them. Make them feel that they've got really strong secure customer authentication, enforce that consent, provide adaptive authentication so you can trust where they're coming from and checking against their behaviors. That demonstrates responsibility to the end user without introducing huge amounts of friction. And make sure that then again, you're meeting all of your regulatory and compliance components. And this doesn't matter whether you're building a connected car, whether you're trying to provide incredible media experiences to end users, whether you're trying to help people have better health, or whether you're trying to help people manage their wealth. Regardless of what environment you're coming from, provide this to your application developers, and they'll be able to provide the right experience through to your end users. And the line that I like to use is this: I knew we were trying to improve our business. I just didn't realize that identity was the answer. And for too long, identity management has been sat as an IT project, and it hasn't been seen at the forefront of the business. Identity management is a growth component for you to be able to interact better with your customers, provide a better experience, protect their data, and grow the revenues that you're going to be growing through that digital channel. Identity is the answer. So I hope that that was a brief run through of the areas where I see customer identity management specifically can help organizations improve their digital experience. And it's an often overlooked component. My goal here is for you to be able to think about this message and think about how you could take something differently up within your organization and get customer identity management to be the cornerstone of what you're taking forward. With that, I'm going to stop sharing